As you may or may not know, last week we started a new series called Fundamentals of a Life of Faith. And so last week, Donia talked about becoming zero, basically emptying ourselves in front of God and allowing God into our lives. Many times we don't actually do that, and then we wonder where God is. So these are different topics that we looked at and we felt are really important for a successful, fruitful life of faith. And we felt that we wanted to kind of start the year off. I mean, to be honest, it's already almost the end of January, so hard to even say that anymore, but try to get some momentum in the year, right? As we are figuring out, navigating things. So today I'm going to be talking about winning the heart of Cain. And this is a topic that's very kind of like a very fundamental unificationist topic, but it's very unique to this faith. It's not really something that you'll hear in a different Christian church or in any other faith tradition. But one of the things that I really love about the divine principle is that it really helps us to understand why the Old Testament exists. Many people, when they read the Bible, they're only actually reading the New Testament. And I'm not saying that there's something wrong with that per se, but many times the Old Testament is just seen as a collection of stories that have lessons. And one of the things about the divine principle is that it actually shows us that actually everything, Jesus and the New Testament, everything that we're experiencing today is all based on the foundation that came about in the Old Testament. How God worked through Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel and Jacob and Esau and Moses and Noah and all these central figures of the Old Testament to create the foundation for Jesus to be able to come. And that without those victories and the things that happened there, Jesus would not have been able to come on the foundation that he came on. And we also, I guess, I don't know what to say, like life would be very different, I suppose. But it was important. And not only is it important for foundations and central figures and things, but there's a lot of really important lessons there that we, if we see them and we understand them and we incorporate them into our life, will help us to live a more fruitful life. So, I actually want to start off by saying this was a very interesting week for me because my grandfather passed away on Wednesday, I believe. And then on Thursday, I got, I talked to my aunt and my dad, and they're, let us know that the funeral will be on Friday. No. He passed away on Tuesday. Monday? Okay, sorry, I'm messing this up. Anyway, very tight timeline, and I found out on Wednesday that the funeral will be on Friday, so we decided to all drive, me, my dad, the kids. Adonia couldn't go, and drive out to Iowa for the funeral. And we stayed for the funeral. We stayed Friday, and then Saturday morning we hopped back in the van and we drove back. It was kind of a lot in a short period of time. But I don't know if I could say that I was particularly close with my grandfather, but our family made a lot of effort to go and visit all our relatives in Iowa every year, and there was definitely some level of closeness, and got to watch him over the years. My earlier memories with him is already an old man. He passed. How old was Grandpa when he passed away? 92. But over the years, he got older, obviously. And thank you, yeah. But I came to really, I'm really glad we went because many people who are my age, 40, don't get the opportunity to have a living grandparent. It's not terribly common. Both of my grandparents in Japan passed away a long time ago. And my grandmother passed away a few years ago. And it's unusual to have a living grandparent when you're my age. But I think it's very important to take the time to remember and celebrate somebody's life, especially an ancestor of yours, because kind of like in the song, it's like a reflection of God's heart towards us. That in our life, we may make many mistakes. We may do some things wrong, some things right. But God sees our heart. And even if we hurt God, God will still welcome us with open arms. And he will say, well done, child. And I think that's really, I believe that that's the heart with which God could receive my grandfather when he passed away this week. Because he wasn't a particularly religious person, but he tried his best in his life, and he was a very honorable person. He loved his wife very dearly, even though they went through some very heavy challenges. And he was a good father, and he was a good grandfather, and he tried his best. And sometimes we don't see the fruits of our life through our own personal. Oh, I was like, what is that? Sometimes we don't see our efforts returned in fruits in our life or immediately. But I have to really recognize that I can be here because of my grandfather, because the love of my grandfather and my grandmother. And then, of course, my dad, my parents, and so on and so forth. But I can have the life that I have because of the effort that they put in. And that's really meaningful. And similarly, when we look at the Old Testament, it's very easy to think, oh, how long ago did this happen, Biblically, it's 6,000 years, but how many years has it actually been? I have no idea. But it's very easy to look at that very, it's not so meaningful to us. These are just people in the past. What they did doesn't really matter too much to me. But I hope that in the message that I'm sharing with you today, that you can maybe feel otherwise a little bit. So as I mentioned before, the topic of winning the heart of Cain is very unique to the unification teachings. It's rooted in the story of Cain and Abel in the Bible, of course, first. It's not just a tale of sibling rivalry or overcoming jealousy, but a lesson about the struggles within human relationships and within our own hearts. Cain represents fallen nature, and Abel represents the heart aligned with God. Winning the heart of Cain, both in others and within ourselves, is essential to building God's kingdom on earth, and even for experiencing it within our own families and community. Our founder, Reverend Moon, he said, the most important thing is the relationship between God and human beings. The next is the Cain-Abel relationship. So briefly, because the story is very brief in the Bible, I just want to read Genesis of this story. Now Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, and Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother and killed him. So, couple paragraphs, really. The Old Testament is quite large, and so this is really a small story in the Old Testament. So in the story, God asked Cain and Abel both to bring offerings. Abel's offering was accepted, Cain's offering was not. So similarly to Lucifer in the fall, who felt that God did not recognize him, he felt lack of love, God did not love him once Adam and Eve were created, and he could see how much God loved them. Lucifer felt, he compared his situation, and he felt angry. The lack of love and the feelings that he had eventually bloomed into resentment and anger, and then he lashed out and attacked God. Similarly, Cain felt that for whatever reason, he worked hard in one of the things that you kind of get from the story is that they gave different offerings, right? Abel was a farmer, and Cain was, he raised cattle. I'm sorry. The other way around. Anyway, they both made very meaningful offerings. It wasn't like Cain was lazy and his offering was sloppy or something like that. They both gave meaningful, from the heart, from their hard work offerings. But for some reason, God accepted Abel's but didn't accept Cain's. So Cain, in some ways, naturally felt, what the heck? Why doesn't God appreciate the effort that I put in? Didn't I work hard? Didn't I invest? My offering deserves to be recognized. Why was his offering accepted and mine wasn't? And these are the similar feelings that Lucifer had. And God even tried to guide him, and God even tried to give him support and encouragement. Don't give in to your feelings, If you do what is right, you will be accepted. And we know through the principle that what God wanted was for Cain and Abel to make their offering together. For Cain to go to Abel and unite with his brother, or Abel to go to Cain, whatever needed to be done, and for them to make the offering together. And then God would have accepted it. That's what God wanted. God wanted restoration. God wanted them to overcome what was lost and what was failed at the fall. But Cain obviously didn't do that and killed his brother. We often express our emotions and through anger and frustration and resentment, which are oftentimes, I would say probably all the time, actually rooted in feeling a sense of lacking. Why doesn't God see my efforts? Why doesn't God recognize me? That person seems to have a way better life than I do. That person seems like when they do something, then God, they get some benefit right away. Why is my life not so blessed? Or just feeling unfairly treated. These are very much the feelings that Cain felt and that we experience in our own lives. There's nobody here who hasn't experienced these feelings. That we lacked something. God doesn't see me. God doesn't love me. My parents don't love me. I've been treated unfairly in some form or fashion. So these situations are not just reserved for figures in the Bible. Although when we look at the central figures of the Bible, we see that the same situation is set up and repeated over and over and over again, whether it's with Noah and his children, or with Jesus and John the Baptist, or with Jesus and the disciples, or with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Esau, their families. So we see that it's a recurring theme, but it's also very much connected to our own personal lives. What God is hoping that we can overcome and we can learn and actually contribute to the world in a lot of ways. I'll touch on that a little bit later. But we often will deal with this similar situation in our own lives. It could be with our own children. Our own children, your child might come to you someday. I haven't had this happen yet, but I'm sure that to some degree, because I make mistakes as a parent, and I don't represent God's love to my children the way I should, that they will come to me someday, and they will say, you know what, I wish that you were more of a better parent in this way. Or I wish you were more like this or more like that. Or I feel like there was something lacking in my life because you couldn't give it to me. And that may be very softly worded or might be very harshly worded. I know some of you here have had very difficult relationships with your children, and they don't recognize all the love and effort that you invested into them. They only see what was missing, and it feels so unfair. We go through this sometimes with our spouses, with our parents, in our relationships with other people in our lives or in work. These are not situations that are just reserved for these special people in the Bible. They're situations that we go through regularly. And even as we work to restore ourselves, and as we work through the different situations in our life, and we try to practice humility and gratitude and work to become better people and fathers and husbands and wives and mothers and our different stages in life, then God calls us to help others. It never ends. When we grow and we mature, then God calls us to help others who are needing of an able figure in their lives. So, how do we win over Cain? Because when sometimes in a situation where a person is angry and resentful and just wants to make things fair, there's no way, it doesn't seem possible, or we don't know how to deal with this situation. We just feel unfairly treated. I had a situation a couple weeks ago where I had someone call me up. I can't share details, but they were basically like, "Oh man, I resented you so much because of this and this and this." And I was like, I just listened. But in my mind, I'm like, dude, what did I do to you? Like, I just tried to be helpful. I didn't, what did I do wrong, And these kind of things happen, like we do try our best. Sure, we make stupid mistakes. Sometimes we do things that are probably deserving of certain responses. But I think a lot of us, we try out of a sincere desire to do our best and to do the best we can for other people in our lives. But it doesn't always get returned in the way we hope or expect. So we look to the story of Jacob and Esau. And we see that in that story, things turn out very differently. That story mirrors almost identically the story of Cain and Abel, surprisingly. It's a little bit different circumstances. Esau resents his brother Jacob for stealing his birthright. They're twins, by the way. But their eventual reconciliation demonstrates the power of humility and forgiveness. So I want to share that story from the Bible. Jacob looked up, which is a much longer story, but this is kind of near the end. Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children because they're coming to kill him because he's so angry. Among Leah, Rachel, and his 2 servant wives, he put the servant wives and their children at the front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then Jacob went on ahead. As he approached his brother, he bowed down to the ground 7 times before him. Then Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him. And they both wept. Then Esau looked at the women and children and asked, "Who are these people with you?" "These are the children God is graciously giving me, your servant," Jacob replied. Then the servant wives came forward with their children and bowed before him. Next came Leah with her children, and they bowed before him. Finally, Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed before him. "And what were all the flocks and herds I met as I came?" Esau asked. Jacob replied, "They are a gift, my lord, to ensure your friendship." "My brother, I have plenty," Esau answered. "Keep what you have for yourself." But Jacob insisted, "No, if I have found favor with you, please accept this gift from me. And what a relief to see your friendly smile. It is like seeing the face of God. Please take this gift I have brought you, for God has been very gracious to me. I have more than enough." And because Jacob insisted, Esau finally accepted the gift. And that's why we have a picture of Jacob and Esau embracing on the stairwell over there, because that was the first time in what we would call providential history or God's story, where two central figures could overcome that same thing that brought Lucifer down, that brought Cain down, and could restore it, could embrace one another, could forgive one another. Esau could forgive Cain. Esau could forgive Jacob. The thing is, Jacob, they stole the birthright because that's what they believed that they were supposed to do. So in Jacob's eyes, I think he didn't think that he had done anything wrong. It could be very easy to feel, why should I have to beg forgiveness from my brother? Why should I have to offer all these things to try to win his favor? Why should I have to bend over backwards to make him accept me? These are often the same theme that comes up in our own lives, right? A spouse, or kids. Well, I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I have to change? Why should I have to ask forgiveness? I'm the right person. I'm the parent, These are often themes that kind of can come up in our own life. These Cain and Abel situations where, maybe there's truth to it. There's truth in the situation with Jacob and Esau where, Jacob could have just expected Esau to overcome on his own. Well, good luck with that, buddy, You're in the wrong. I hope you can overcome your fallen nature and your problems, But we're going to talk about that in a minute. That kind of attitude doesn't work. It's not helpful. So, if we think about it from our own perspective of what's comfortable for me, or like what, for me being right and me being justified in being right, then it makes sense. But if we're thinking about it from the perspective of God and restoration and what the decisions and the things that in the relationships in our lives and how they affect generations to come, then we have to think bigger about our lives, not just, well, if I didn't do anything wrong, I have no reason to apologize. It's a little bit different. So, let's see. And because of this, the principle teaches us, because of this, God was able to send Jesus to this lineage many generations later. If you read the Bible, there's many pages dedicated to lineage. This person begat this person, who begat this person, who begat this person, because they're clarifying the reality that because of these people and what they did, many generations later, something else was possible. We don't really think about like lineage and generations so much in today's society, but it was, I think, a much bigger thing back then. So there's some lessons that we can glean and learn from these stories that are, like I said before, fundamental to a life of faith. So first, all right, that order. Winning the heart of Cain requires consistent acts of service and sincerity. True love has the power to dissolve barriers of anger and mistrust. When we prioritize the well-being of others, even a hardened heart can begin to soften. Understanding the heart of Cain. Cain's actions stem from deep feelings of rejection and inferiority, lack of love. When dealing with a Cain-like person, we must first recognize their pain and struggles. God did not abandon Cain. And I think that's an important point that is something that we need to think about. It can be very easy to write off people because, they're not worth the effort, or they're going down the wrong road. I do it, And when God saw that Cain was angry and resentful and fuming, he didn't just abandon him. God went to Cain and he tried to warn him. He tried to encourage him. He tried to give him some level of support. And in the end, Cain didn't take it, but God didn't abandon Cain. And even when Cain killed his brother, and there was many consequences of that, God still tried to love and embrace Cain the best that he could. So we are called to not abandon Cain, but to approach Cain with patience and empathy, recognizing that their pain is often different. We're not experiencing their pain. We're not experiencing what they're experiencing, and to recognize that there's something deeper there. And then lastly, to practice Abel's heart. As an Abel figure, we are called to embody humility and love. Avoid arrogance or condescension, which can deepen Cain's resentment. So this is kind of what I was mentioning earlier. It can be easy to be condescending towards somebody when you feel like you're right and they're wrong, right? It can be easy to develop kind of this superiority. Well, I know better. You're so dumb. You're just following your emotions. You're making a mistake. Good luck to you. We can do that, and maybe in some ways be justified, but it's not Abel's perspective. It's not God's perspective. We can't decide how somebody is going to decide to live their life. We can't choose how someone's going to make decisions. But it doesn't mean that we should ignore them or neglect them or completely just let them do their thing either. Then God, as we know in our own lives, God tries to intervene. God tries to knock on our door. God tries to tap on our window. And God tries to reach us. We may not let him in, or we may, but God tries. We can say, I'm Abel, you're Cain, you should unite with me. Or we say, I'm the parent, listen to me, I know better. I'm the boss, look at my title. You have to listen to me. I'm the leader. But that doesn't work, because these are not positions of titles. These are positions in relationships. And they're not meant to be thrown up on a wall. They're meant to be earned, because they're a reflection of our heart and our effort and our character. Abel isn't the title. It's something that we just happen to be in that position, in that relationship at the time. So these are 3 points that are, there's probably many others, but these are 3 points to understand from Cain and Abel's relationships. So how did Jacob win Esau's heart? Jacob acknowledged his wrongdoing in front of his brother, and he took steps to win his brother's heart. He made plans. He sent his many wives and his many children and all of his material belongings, everything that he gained over all the years of work and labor over the previous, I think, 21 years, and everything that would show of him to have value in the eyes of the world. And he presented it to his brother. It's all yours. All I ask for is your forgiveness. And Esau was moved by Jacob's sincerity. And then, Jacob even bowed down 7 times in front of his brother. This seems extreme, you know? But earning his brother's forgiveness was that important to Jacob. Winning over his Cain was that important to Jacob, that he was willing to do those things. He was basically willing to offer everything of value in his life, including himself. Because as you saw earlier, Esau had hired 400 men with the only purpose to kill his brother. So his life was in danger, 100%. So this reconciliation teaches us the importance of humility, of making that effort, that proactive effort, and of genuine repentance in healing relationships. And in our lives, we can apply this by acknowledging our faults, by doing whatever we can do to make amends, and demonstrating humility in our actions. Sincere gestures of love and respect can transform even the most strained relationships. So there's another type of Cain-Abel relationship that our true Father has talked about many times also. I know those of you who've been in the movement for many years have heard it many times talked about the Cain-Abel relationship, but that the Cain-Abel relationship is also something that exists within us. We also have a Cain and Abel within us as well. We have a side that wants to be generous and wants to connect with God, and we have a side that wants to embrace and love and trust others, and then we have a side that wants to withdraw and wants to place blame, wants to be judgmental of others, wants to focus on our own lackings and the things that we don't have or the things that we didn't receive from important people in our lives. I remember one time there was after I did my missions program, there was supposed to be kind of like a something in place to help people to reintegrate into kind of normal life again. Because that life was, we were living in a van and, fundraising and witnessing and all these things. Not your typical life. And many times after doing that for a year or two, or however, Adonia's case, 4 years, it's hard to integrate back into like normal life again. And so they tried to create something to kind of help with that process, to kind of ease us back in. And I finished my 2 years of the program, went back home. I was helping my parents with different things, and I was feeling a little bit lost. And this guy who represented this part of the organization I was supposed to help with the transition was here. And, I was just watching him. I'm like, in my mind, I'm just judging him so hard. I'm like, you're supposed to be helping me with like transitioning back into normal life, but I'm not, I don't feel good at all. Like, and I just wanted to blame him. Like, you're not doing your job. You're not doing what you said you were going to do. Because of that, my life is less happy. I don't even know how I would say it. And or I'm struggling unnecessarily. And I fully recognize it's like a Cain side of me coming out. It just wants to not take responsibility for my own situation, but to blame it on somebody else. And to say, well, because of you, my life is like this. And so these same inclinations of the feelings that Lucifer had, that Cain had, that Esau had, we experience also. And we also have our original mind, we have our conscience that's pulling us into more of a God's direction. And we have to deal with both. So winning that battle is just as important as dealing with the people in our lives that we struggle with. And so there's a few points that I'd like to make that we can also gain from these same stories about how we approach that struggle within ourselves. First is to acknowledge resentment. Resentment and jealousy often go unnoticed until they manifest as anger or withdrawal. through self-reflection and prayer, and I would also add honest conversations with friends and able figures and peers, we can bring these feelings to light and confront them honestly. I think that's really important. Painful experiences, hurt within us, feeling like lack of love, God doesn't notice me, these things eventually fester and manifest themselves in really unhealthy ways in our life, like Star Wars, or Naruto, whatever. A lot of modern shows, movies reflect the same dynamic, whether it's with two brothers or just within ourselves, experiencing the dark side, these kind of things. Seeking God's guidance. Just as God spoke to Cain, urging him to master his sin, we must turn to God for strength and clarity. Through prayer and study of God's word, we can align our hearts with his will. Cultivating gratitude and humility. Gratitude dissolves the roots of jealousy. By focusing on our blessings and God's love for us, we can overcome feelings of inadequacy and comparison. Looks like all the kids are done with their Sunday school. Try to finish up soon here. Building relationships through love. Healing Cain-Abel divide within requires intentional love for others. Serving others with humility allows us to practice the heart of Abel and restore harmony in our relationships. So in conclusion, if we can understand what the Bible is actually trying to teach us, then it actually makes a big difference in our lives and how fruitful and how happy and fulfilled we can be in our lives. Winning the heart of Cain is essence of God's restoration plan. It's what propels forward or stifles God's work in this world. So whether it's a challenging relationship in our lives or our own internal struggles, the principle teaches us to have love, patience, and humility, which are the keys to victory. And when we uplift and embrace the heart of Abel and uplift Cain, we participate in God's work of restoration. I'd like to finish by reading one final quote from our founder. As a result of the fall in the Garden of Eden, there was a struggle between Cain, who was born the older brother, and Abel, the younger brother. The resentment between them became bitter. We must resolve it. Otherwise, there is no way for us to find the parents. For this purpose, God has walked a winding path with ups and downs throughout history. Please join me in prayer. Good morning, our dearest Heavenly Parent. Thank you for this beautiful winter morning and every person that came in through the snow and the cold to be here this morning. Heavenly Parent, we're so grateful for everybody's sincere efforts. And we know, Heavenly Parent, that in our lives we may have stumbles, or we may have challenges along the way, but Heavenly Parent, if we really invest ourselves sincerely and we work to restore the things in our lives and in this world and in our relationships that you seek to have restored, Heavenly Parent, you will work through those efforts and you will do something bigger than what we ourselves could do or could imagine, Heavenly Parent. We look forward to the day where we can be embraced by your love when we leave this life and we can hear those words shared with us. Well done, well done. And Heavenly Parent, we really do want to try our best, Heavenly Parent. And even if we go along a winding road or if we stumble along the way, Heavenly Parent, please help us to stand back up again. Please help us to keep a good heart, a grateful heart, and keep trying, Heavenly Parent. I thank you and offer this prayer on behalf of all of us as Blessed Central families. Amen and Aju. Thank you.